The first laugh came softly. Charlotte Wren almost missed it beneath the violins. She stood near the edge of the Bellamy ballroom, one gloved hand resting against her reticule, while couples turned beneath 3 blazing chandeliers. Candlelight flashed across crystal drops and polished shoes. The room smelled of beeswax perfume and warm silk. Then something slipped from her bag. A folded sheet struck the floor. Charlotte bent at once. Honoria Bellamy was quicker. "What have you there?" Charlotte's cousin lifted the paper before Charlotte could reach it. Honoria. But the name came too late. The sheet opened in Honoria's hands. Graphite lines crossed the page in careful measure. Drainage marks ran beside a boundary wall. Charlotte had spent 6 evenings correcting them, after the household had gone quiet. A gentleman beside Honoria leaned closer. An estate plan. Honoria's cheeks colored. Her intended partner for the next dance stood within hearing. "It is nothing, then give it back." Charlotte held out her hand. Honoria looked at her. Something frightened passed through her expression. Then she smiled too brightly. "Charlotte copies these for money." The gentleman blinked. Another lady turned. "For money?" Honoria gave a nervous little laugh. "She has become terribly industrious since coming to us." The words traveled faster than they should have. Someone behind Charlotte murmured, "That respectable young woman embroidered." Another voice wondered whether Sir Philip now kept a survey office upstairs. The first laugh had been soft. The second was not. Charlotte felt heat rise beneath her skin. She did not move. Sir Philip appeared beyond Honoria's shoulder, smoothing one cuff. "My niece has always enjoyed drawing," he said. It was meant to help. It did not. A woman Charlotte barely knew looked at the plan and smiled. "How enterprising. Do young ladies of good family now take commissions like tradesmen?" The circle widened. No one said anything openly cruel after that. They did not need to. Charlotte saw amusement in mouths hidden behind fans. She saw curiosity, worse, she saw pity. Her fingers tightened. "Give it to me, Honoria." Honoria lowered the paper. It slipped. The plan landed between them. Charlotte bent. A black evening shoe stopped beside the page. A man reached it first. The room altered around him. Nathaniel Harcourt, Duke of Ashcombe, straightened with Charlotte's drawing in his hand. He was taller than most men present, dressed in black with a dark blue waistcoat and an immaculate white cravat. He did not look at the spectators. He looked at the paper. Charlotte wished he would not. His eyes moved over the drainage marks. Not idly, he followed one line to the eastern boundary, then another toward the lower field. "Your Grace," Sir Philip began. Nathaniel ignored him. He looked at Charlotte. "Miss Wren, yes." He folded the plan once along its old crease and held it toward her. Charlotte took it. Graphite had marked the tip of her glove. Nathaniel's gaze dropped to the grey stain. Then he said, quietly enough that everyone leaned closer to hear, "I believe this is ours." Charlotte stared at him. The orchestra had begun another set. Nathaniel extended his hand. No dance had been promised between them. Everyone knew it. Charlotte knew exactly what the gesture meant. If she refused, they would call her wounded. If she accepted, they would say the Duke had taken pity on her. There was no clean path left, so she chose the path herself. Charlotte placed her hand in his. Nathaniel led her onto the floor. A murmur followed them. His hand settled correctly at her back. His expression remained unreadable. Charlotte kept her chin level. "You need not do this, Your Grace. I am already doing it." "That is not an answer." "No," they turned with the other couples. Charlotte expected him to offer comfort. He did not. Instead, he said, "The lower drainage line." She looked at him. "What of it? You altered it." Charlotte's step nearly faltered. Nathaniel adjusted without drawing attention to the mistake. "You noticed. It crosses the boundary at the wrong angle on the original hand." Charlotte forgot the people watching them. "For the ground shown, yes. And the second mark?" "A correction. Yours." "Yes." For the first time, something changed in his face. "Not kindness." "Why?" Charlotte glanced once toward the folded plan in her hand. "Because water does not care where a man wishes a boundary to be." Nathaniel was silent for 2 measures. Then very slightly he smiled. Across the ballroom, Lady Agnes Verney lowered her fan. Honoria stood pale beside her father. Charlotte saw none of them. The Duke had not asked why she needed money. He had asked about the work. That frightened her more than the laughter had. Because when the dance ended, Nathaniel Harcourt bowed over her hand and said only, "I should like to see the rest." The next morning, a card from Ashcombe House arrived before breakfast. Breakfast at Bellamy House was quieter than the ballroom had been. That made it worse. Charlotte sat opposite Honoria beneath the pale morning light, her untouched tea cooling beside a slice of toast. Sir Philip stood near the window with one hand tucked into his waistcoat. "You ought not to have carried such papers to a ball," he said. Charlotte looked at him. "The paper was mine. That is hardly the point." "It is exactly the point." Sir Philip exhaled and adjusted one cuff. Honoria stared at her plate. "I did not know everyone would hear." Charlotte turned toward her cousin. "No, you only meant the people nearest you to hear." Honoria's face went pink. "I was embarrassed. So you gave the embarrassment to me." Silence settled over the table. A spoon clicked against porcelain. Sir Philip cleared his throat. "There is no advantage in prolonging this." Charlotte nearly laughed. The previous night had apparently been long enough for disgrace, but one breakfast was too much for consequence. A servant entered with a silver tray. "Miss Wren." There was one card upon it. Charlotte took it. Lady Miriam Harcourt requested the pleasure of Miss Wren's company at Ashcombe House that afternoon. Sir Philip's expression changed at once. Well, Charlotte hated that single word. Honoria looked up. Perhaps His Grace. "No." Charlotte slid the card beside her tea. "No what?" Sir Philip asked. "No speculation." By 3 o'clock, however, she was stepping from a hired carriage before Ashcombe House. The townhouse was less ostentatious than she had expected. Dark brick, tall windows, brass polished bright enough to catch the grey London sky. Lady Miriam received her in a drawing room, warmed by a coal fire. She was a handsome widow with clear eyes, and none of the careful sweetness Charlotte had learned to distrust. "My brother will join us shortly," she said, pouring tea herself. "I thought it better that you not be summoned to a duke's study alone." Charlotte looked at her. "Thank you," Miriam smiled. "That sounded as if you meant it." "I did. Then let us not spoil the rarity." The door opened. Nathaniel Harcourt entered carrying a leather portfolio. Charlotte stood. "Your Grace." "Miss Wren." He bowed to his sister, then placed the portfolio on a mahogany table. Charlotte had prepared a proper expression of gratitude. She gave it anyway. "I wish to thank you for last night." Nathaniel untied the portfolio. "You owe me nothing for a dance." It was not only a dance. No, that was all. Charlotte waited. He did not offer sympathy. Instead, he removed 3 folded estate plans. "Who taught you to read these?" Her gratitude vanished. "My father." "Was he a surveyor?" "He prepared estate drawings and measured land for several families." "And you assisted him?" Charlotte's shoulders stiffened. "Sometimes." Nathaniel opened the first plan. "The mark you noticed last night. Was that habit or chance?" "Neither." He looked up. She stepped closer despite herself. The drainage line contradicts the slope, indicated by the boundary measurements. "You saw that during a ballroom." "I had corrected the drawing before the ballroom." His mouth shifted, almost a smile. Charlotte disliked that she noticed. Nathaniel spread the other 2 plans beside it. "I have several copies from Ashcombe Park that do not agree with one another. My steward's clerk can reproduce them. I require someone to compare them." Charlotte looked from the papers to him. "You are offering me work." "Yes. Why?" "Because you appear able to do it." It was too clean an answer. Charlotte folded her hands. "And what do you intend to pay?" Nathaniel named a sum. It was fair, not lavish. That unsettled her more than generosity would have. "What is the scope?" His brows lifted. "The scope. How many plans? Which years? Are the originals available? Do you require clean copies or only a record of discrepancies?" Miriam lowered her teacup. Nathaniel regarded Charlotte for a moment. 23 plans, some originals, some copies. I require discrepancies first, and if the discrepancies suggest a larger problem, then I shall decide what follows. Charlotte heard the authority in it. There was the Duke. I should like to see the documents before I agree. A pause. Nathaniel was not accustomed to pauses after offering something. Very well, he gathered the plans. Charlotte rose. I will send an answer tomorrow. You may take until the day after. I shall not need it. This time he did smile. Only slightly. Charlotte hated that she noticed that too. Lady Miriam walked her to the drawing room door. When it closed, Nathaniel remained beside the table. Miriam returned to her chair. Did you expect gratitude? No, she said nothing. Nathaniel looked toward the door. Perhaps less suspicion. Miriam reached for the teapot. That, she said, sounds very much like expectation. Nathaniel glanced down at the estate plans. For the first time in years, the errors on them interested him less than the woman who had seen them. Charlotte sent her answer before noon. She accepted the commission, but the note contained 4 conditions. The agreed sum would be paid upon completion. Any additional work would require a separate agreement. Her corrections were to be marked as hers. No gifts would be added to the payment. She read the note twice before sealing it. Sir Philip read none of it. When she told him at luncheon, his expression tightened. You are actually doing this? Yes, for the Duke of Ashcombe. For payment. That distinction may matter to you. It ought to matter to everyone. Honoria looked between them. Sir Philip set down his knife. A woman in your position cannot afford to be careless about appearances. Charlotte almost answered that a woman in her position could not afford to be careless about money either. Instead, she folded her napkin. I shall be at Ashcombe House at 2. The first afternoon passed without incident. 23 estate plans waited in the small map study Nathaniel had placed at her disposal. Some were clean copies, others were older sheets, softened at the folds and stained by years of handling. Charlotte worked in silence. She compared dates first, then scale, then boundaries. Only after that did she examine the waterlines. By 4 o'clock, graphite marked the side of her hand. By 5, she had found one inconsistency. She did not call Nathaniel. One inconsistency could be a careless copy. The next morning produced a second. That afternoon, a third. The 3 plans had been drawn years apart. All showed the southern fields. None agreed. Charlotte sat back. The room had gone quiet except for carriage wheels beyond the windows. A servant appeared at the door. Miss Wren, Lady Miriam asks whether you will join her in the drawing room. Charlotte covered the papers. The drawing room held more people than she expected. Lady Miriam sat beside an elderly aunt. Nathaniel stood near the mantel. Beside him was Lady Agnes Verney, dressed in pale green, one gloved hand resting lightly upon the back of a chair. Charlotte recognized her from the ballroom. Lady Agnes recognized her too. Miss Wren, her smile was graceful. Lady Agnes, I hear Ashcombe has acquired a draftswoman. The aunt looked interested. Charlotte felt Nathaniel's attention shift toward them. I have accepted a commission. How modern. The words were pleasant. The meaning was not. Lady Agnes turned to Nathaniel. And she is the same young lady you danced with. Nathaniel did not move from the mantel. She is. How fortunate that the acquaintance proved useful. Charlotte waited. She knew that tone. A gentleman could rescue a woman publicly and still explain her privately as a charitable obligation. Nathaniel said, Miss Wren is working for me because she is good at the work. Nothing more. Lady Agnes's smile remained, but the aunt stopped looking amused. Charlotte looked at Nathaniel. He had already turned the conversation elsewhere. Something inside her loosened, only slightly. An hour later, they were alone in the map study. Charlotte placed 3 plans across the mahogany table. Nathaniel stood opposite her. You found something. I found 3 things pretending to be one. He leaned closer. Charlotte pointed to the first sheet. This drainage line runs east of the boundary wall. Her finger moved to the second. Here it crosses the same boundary, then the third, and here it disappears. Nathaniel frowned. Different surveys. Of the same land. Could the copies be wrong? Yes, he looked at her. She tapped the dates, but not in the same way over nearly 40 years. Nathaniel drew the nearest lamp closer. The brass base scraped softly against wood. What do you think happened? I do not know. He seemed surprised. Charlotte almost smiled. You expected a solution. I expected an opinion. You have one, and my opinion is that anyone who claims certainty from 3 London plans is a fool. His mouth moved. This time the smile came fully enough for her to see it. An expensive answer. You agreed to the price. So I did. Charlotte bent over the first plan again. The older survey suggests water once left the southern meadow here. She traced the line. The later copy sends it elsewhere, but the slope markings do not support that. Nathaniel followed her finger. Ashcombe has spent money on drainage there twice in 6 years. Charlotte looked up. How much? Enough to make my steward dislike the subject. And did the repairs work? For a time. Then they did not solve the cause. Nathaniel's expression changed. The easy amusement vanished. What would you need? To see the ground. That is all. The fields. The ditches, the hedge lines. Any older roads nearby, and the cottages if water reaches them. Nathaniel was silent. Charlotte waited for him to decide whether the inconvenience of taking her seriously was greater than the convenience of keeping her at a desk. At last he rolled the newest plan shut. Then you must come to Sussex. Charlotte stared at him. An unmarried woman could not simply travel to a duke's country estate because he had asked her. Nathaniel seemed to read the objection. My sister is returning to Ashcombe Park next week. That altered the problem. It did not remove it. If I go, Charlotte said, I go for the commission. Nathaniel met her gaze. I know. Outside, a carriage rattled over the wet street. Charlotte looked down at the 3 plans. For the first time, the ballroom felt very far away. The problem on the paper did not care who had laughed at her. And neither did the water. The journey to Sussex took most of the day. Charlotte had expected the distance to make the decision feel foolish. Instead, as London thinned behind the carriage windows, it became easier to breathe. Lady Miriam sat opposite her, with a book open on her lap, though she had not turned a page for nearly 20 minutes. You may still change your mind, she said. Charlotte looked up. About the commission, about Ashcombe. That would be inconvenient. For my brother. For me, I have already packed. Miriam smiled and returned to her unread book. Rain followed them south. By late afternoon, the road had narrowed between hedges shining black with water. Fields stretched beyond them in dull green bands. Sheep clustered beneath bare-limbed trees. The carriage slowed twice where mud had thickened the ruts. Charlotte began watching the ditches. Miriam noticed. You are working already. I am looking. There is a difference? Usually, Ashcombe Park appeared beyond iron gates as the rain softened. The house stood on rising ground, broad and pale beneath a slate roof. It was handsome without seeming theatrical. No ruined towers, no ivy-swallowing windows. Smoke rose from several chimneys. At first glance, the estate looked prosperous. Then Charlotte saw the southern fields. Water shone between furrows where it should not have been. A cart had sunk deep enough to leave ridges of brown mud along the track. Farther down, men were clearing a ditch already full again. Nathaniel waited beneath the portico. He stepped forward as the carriage stopped. Your journey, wet, Miriam said before Charlotte could answer. Nathaniel offered his sister a hand down, then Charlotte. She hesitated only a moment before taking it. This was not a ballroom. No one was watching except servants and rain. Still, she released him as soon as both boots touched stone. Inside, the hall smelled of damp wool, polished wood, and the faint smoke of a coal fire somewhere deeper in the house. Charlotte had barely removed her gloves when a man entered from a side corridor, carrying a leather folio beneath one arm. Miss Wren, Nathaniel said. Elias Crowther, my steward. Crowther was near 50, lean, grey at the temples, with a face that seemed built for withholding approval. He bowed. Miss Wren. Mr. Crowther, I understand you have been examining our plans. I have, and found them wanting. Nathaniel's gaze shifted between them. Charlotte said, "I found them inconsistent." Crowther's mouth tightened. A diplomatic distinction. A precise one. For the first time, Miriam coughed into her hand to hide a smile. Nathaniel did not. "Tomorrow," he said, "you may both prove yourselves right." Crowther turned to him. "Your Grace, I have served Ashcombe for 20 years. I am aware. There are reasons older features disappear from working plans." Charlotte met Crowther's eyes. "Then you will know where the maps are wrong." The steward studied her. Something changed in his expression. Not approval, attention. The map room lay on the east side of the house. Charlotte understood its purpose the moment she entered. Tall windows gave steady daylight. A broad mahogany table occupied the center. Map cases lined one wall. Shelves held rent books, correspondence boxes, and rolled surveys tied with ribbon faded almost to brown. Nathaniel had not exaggerated. Ashcombe possessed records enough to bury a careless person. Charlotte removed her traveling cloak and laid it across a chair. The room was cold. She did not mind. Crowther opened the first case. "If it is the southern line that troubles you, begin with these." He placed 4 surveys on the table. Charlotte unfolded the oldest. The paper had softened at the creases. She compared the boundary first, then the scale, then the water. There it was, the same disappearing line. Crowther leaned one hand on the table. Obsolete drainage, possibly. He looked almost disappointed. Charlotte pulled the next plan closer. The line had moved. On the third, it ended at the edge of a meadow. "Possibly," she repeated, "but unlikely." Nathaniel stood behind her. "Why?" Charlotte pointed. "The boundary changes here." Crowther shook his head. "That boundary was redrawn." "Yes, for rent purposes." "Yes," Crowther frowned. Charlotte reached for a separate sheet. A rent map. She placed it beside the survey. "The old boundary follows the same curve as the missing water line." Nathaniel stepped nearer. Crowther's expression became more guarded. Charlotte continued. "If the watercourse disappeared before the boundary changed, this means nothing. If the boundary followed the watercourse, it means the channel once mattered enough to define the land." Crowther folded his arms. "And if the mapmaker was careless, then I need another mapmaker." She opened a second rent survey. The curve remained. Silence settled over the table. Outside, rain silvered the windows. Nathaniel moved from behind Charlotte to the opposite side. He pulled out a chair. Sat. It was a small thing. Charlotte noticed it. Until then, he had stood over the work as if waiting for a report. Now he was looking at the evidence with her. "Show me from the beginning," he said. Charlotte looked at Crowther. The steward gave one reluctant nod. So she began again, the oldest drainage line, the altered boundary, the later survey, the rent map, the missing course. Nathaniel interrupted twice with questions. Both were sensible. Charlotte answered them. When she finished, he reached for the leather map case at his elbow. For a moment she expected him to close it. Instead, he pushed the entire case across the table toward her. "Show me." Charlotte rested her fingertips on the worn leather. Something quiet shifted inside her. At the ballroom, Nathaniel had given her his hand, because everyone was watching. Here no one was. Here he was giving her the work. She opened the case. "If the old course still exists," she said, "the ground will remember it." Crowther glanced toward the rain. "You intend to find it?" Charlotte looked at the darkening windows. "Yes." Nathaniel rose. "Then tomorrow we go outside." Morning came pale and cold. The rain had stopped, but the estate still held it. Water gleamed in the furrows south of the house. The road toward the lower meadow had softened into brown ruts, and every horse that passed left a darker scar behind. Charlotte stood beneath the portico fastening her pelisse. Crowther looked at her boots. They will not survive the meadow. They were never very handsome. Nathaniel came down the steps, pulling on riding gloves. "We can take horses." Charlotte looked toward the wet fields. "I would rather walk." Crowther's brows rose. Nathaniel said nothing. That annoyed her more than objection would have. They crossed the first meadow under a low gray sky. Charlotte pinned the front of her skirt, high enough to keep the hem from dragging. Even so, Mud found the pale fabric within minutes. Crowther noticed. She ignored him. The first ditch ran full. Charlotte crouched beside it. The bank had been repaired recently. Fresh cuts showed beneath older turf. Water moved quickly for several yards, then slowed where the ground flattened. Nathaniel stopped beside her. Charlotte pointed with one gloved finger. "The ditch is not failing here." Crowther frowned. "It is overflowing." "Yes, because it is being asked to carry water from somewhere else." He folded his arms. "That is a theory. So was the map." She stood. "Where does this lead?" Crowther gestured south to the lower fields. They followed the ditch. The ground dropped so gradually that Charlotte would not have noticed without the plans. A line of old hawthorns curved away from the current boundary. She stopped. Nathaniel nearly walked past her. "What is it?" "The hedge." Crowther looked impatient. "Hedges move. Not like this." Charlotte stepped off the track. Mud pulled at her boots. She followed the curve until the ditch and hedge separated. Then she found the hollow. It was shallow, almost nothing, a long depression hidden beneath wet grass. Charlotte knelt and pressed her palm to the ground. Nathaniel watched her. Crowther sighed. "Miss Wren, if you intend to read the earth by touching it, look at the rushes." He stopped. The plants followed the depression in a narrow line. Charlotte rose. "This held water once." Crowther looked toward the hedge again. Nathaniel asked, "The old course?" "Perhaps." Charlotte pointed farther south. "Where does it go?" "To Mill Cottages," Crowther said. They reached the cottages before noon. There were 6 of them, low and whitewashed, set close together beside a lane that should have been firm in spring. It was not. A woman stood in one doorway with a child on her hip. Nathaniel knew her name. "Hale," she curtsied awkwardly. "Your Grace, how is Thomas?" Still coughing, Nathaniel glanced toward the child. "Has Dr. Mercer seen him?" "Yesterday, and the room." Mrs. Hale hesitated. Charlotte understood before she answered. "Still damp, sir." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He stepped inside without waiting for invitation. Charlotte followed. The cottage was clean. That made the dark stain climbing the lower wall more visible. A wooden bowl sat beneath a slow drip. Nathaniel touched the plaster. "Since when?" "After the last rain." Mrs. Hale shifted the child. "It dries some when the weather clears." Charlotte crossed to the window. Outside, the ground dipped toward the same line she had followed through the meadow. Not coincidence, she turned. "Hale, where does water stand longest?" The woman looked at Nathaniel. Charlotte waited. Nathaniel noticed. "Miss Wren asked you." Mrs. Hale looked back to Charlotte. "Behind the cottages, ma'am, near the alder trees." They went there next. The hollow continued. Charlotte felt something cold settle into place. The maps had been right once. The land still remembered. At luncheon she expected peace. Instead, 2 neighboring landowners had arrived. Sir Edward Marlowe was broad, cheerful, and far too interested in why Charlotte's hem was stained with mud. "So Ashcombe imports surveyors in silk now." Charlotte lifted her wineglass. "Only when local gentlemen cannot keep their fields dry." The table went still. Sir Edward blinked. Then Nathaniel made a sound behind his glass. Not quite a laugh. Sir Edward looked at him. Nathaniel lowered the glass. "Miss Wren has spent the morning finding water that has avoided 3 generations of estate plans." Sir Edward looked back at Charlotte with new caution. "Has she?" "She has." Charlotte said nothing. She did not need to. Later, as they returned toward the house, the clouds began to break. Weak sunlight caught the wet grass. Charlotte paused at the edge of the lower meadow. There, the depression curved toward a neglected stand of trees. Beyond them, the ground fell again. Nathaniel came to stand beside her. "You have found something." "I have found where to look." "That is not the same thing." "No." He glanced at the mud on her hem. "You seem pleased anyway." Charlotte looked toward the trees. For the first time, the ground agrees with the paper. Nathaniel followed her gaze. "And if it continues?" Then someone changed the watercourse. Crowther had stopped several yards behind them. His expression had lost its skepticism. Charlotte stepped forward. The wet grass brushed against her boots. The hollow led straight toward the woodland. And somewhere beyond those trees, the old maps had gone silent. The hollow continued beneath the trees. By mid-morning, Charlotte had lost sight of the house entirely. Only Nathaniel walked with her now. Crowther had been called away by a tenant matter, leaving them to trace the shallow depression, where it crossed the woodland edge and vanished beneath years of leaf mold. The ground was firmer here. Charlotte preferred it. She carried a folded copy of the oldest survey beneath her arm and stopped every few yards to compare the line on paper with what the land allowed. Nathaniel watched her work without interruption. At first, "You are drifting too close to the edge." Charlotte looked up. They had reached an old carriage road cut along a low embankment. "I am 6 feet from it. The ground is wet. So is half your estate." "Charlotte," she stopped. He had never used her Christian name before. Neither of them seemed prepared for it. Nathaniel's face had changed. The easy reserve was gone. His attention had fixed on the road ahead, as if something stood there that Charlotte could not see. Rain began lightly through the branches. He stepped toward her. "Come away from the edge. I am not in danger." "Do it." The order struck harder than it should have. Charlotte folded the map. "I am not one of your tenants." "I am aware." "Then do not speak to me as if I require managing." His jaw tightened. The rain grew heavier. Nathaniel looked past her again. "This is where Edmund died." The anger left her. Not all at once, enough. Charlotte glanced at the road. There was nothing dramatic about it. No broken marker, no memorials. Only wet earth, an old bend and a ditch choked with last year's leaves. Nathaniel stood very still. "My brother," he said. 4 years ago." Charlotte said nothing. He continued because she did not fill the silence. The road had been reported unstable after rain. Crowther wanted repairs begun immediately. His voice was flat. "I delayed them. Why? There were other costs. Other work. I believed it would hold another week." Rain tapped against Charlotte's bonnet. Nathaniel removed one glove. He flexed his hand once. Edmund left for Lewes the next morning. The carriage went over there. He pointed toward the bend. Charlotte looked. "And you think every road must obey you now?" Nathaniel turned to her. She had not meant it cruelly. He seemed to understand. Something like that. Charlotte looked down at the map between her hands. "When my father died, creditors came before the flowers had wilted." Nathaniel said nothing. Men who had praised his work for years stood in our drawing room and called him careless. Her thumb rubbed the edge of her forefinger. One said talent was useless without prudence. Nathaniel's eyes dropped briefly to the movement. Charlotte stopped. "I decided I would never owe anyone enough to let them say the same of me." "And has that worked?" "No." The answer surprised them both. A horse shifted somewhere deeper among the trees. For a while, only the rain spoke. Then Charlotte unfolded the survey again. "We should go back." Nathaniel nodded. He did not tell her where to walk. That mattered. The map room was warm by evening. Someone had lit the fire before Charlotte arrived, and 2 candles burned near the center of the table. She had spent the afternoon thinking about the old road. Not Edmund, the land. At least that was what she told herself. Nathaniel entered carrying a narrow wooden box. Charlotte removed her gloves and reached for a ruler. His hand moved at the same time. Their fingers stopped less than an inch apart. Graphite darkened the side of Charlotte's forefinger. Nathaniel's gaze rested there. Then on the small, hard ridge where years of holding a pencil had marked the skin. He did not touch her. Charlotte became suddenly aware of the fire, the rain, the space between them. Nathaniel withdrew first. "I found something." Charlotte breathed again. He opened the box. Inside lay several old. "One of the record cabinets has been locked since my father's death." "You have not opened it?" "I had no reason." "And now, you asked for old correspondence." Charlotte looked toward the tall cabinet against the far wall. Nathaniel selected one key. It was iron, cold and dark from age. He placed it in her palm. "Keep it until you have what you need." Charlotte closed her fingers around it. You trust me with locked family papers. I trust you to know which ones matter. That silenced her. Nathaniel looked away first. He reached for the revised notes she had made that afternoon. Charlotte crossed to the cabinet. The key turned stiffly. Inside were bundles of letters tied with faded ribbon, old memoranda, and estate accounts from 3 decades earlier. She pulled the first packet free. Dust rose in the candlelight. Nathaniel came to stand beside her, though not as close as before. Charlotte opened a letter. The handwriting was narrow and hurried. Halfway down the second page, one phrase stopped her. She read it again, the southern cut. Nathaniel leaned nearer. What? Charlotte turned the page toward him. There was a cut south of the old road. He frowned. It is not on any current plan. I know. Charlotte looked toward the rain-black windows. For the first time, the missing watercourse had a name, and somewhere on Ashcombe land, something built to control it had disappeared from memory. Charlotte spent the next 2 days inside the map room. The newly opened cabinet yielded more than she expected. There were letters from Nathaniel's father to former stewards, notes about repairs, rough sketches made in the margins of rent books, even receipts for stonework along the southern fields. Most meant nothing, 3 did. The first referred again to the southern cut. The second mentioned a change in the old boundary after water had been redirected. The third described the enlargement of the ornamental lake nearly 30 years earlier. Charlotte placed all 3 beside the oldest rent map. Nathaniel stood opposite her. Crowther remained near the window with both hands behind his back. Charlotte drew one finger along the paper. The watercourse was not abandoned because it failed. Crowther leaned closer. What makes you certain? It was redirected. She moved to the next document. This note was written the year before the lake was enlarged. Then the third, and this was written after. Nathaniel looked toward the window. From the map room, the lake itself was not visible, but he knew exactly where it lay. So the lake took the water. Not all of it. Charlotte pulled the newer drainage plan across the table. Your later ditches were built to carry what remained. That worked when the ground was drier and the farms were smaller. Crowther frowned, and now? Now the same system is carrying more water through less useful ground. He looked displeased, not offended. That was progress, Nathaniel asked. Can it be repaired? Yes. Crowther glanced at her. Charlotte corrected herself. Probably. Nathaniel's mouth almost moved. She ignored him. There are 2 choices. You can continue strengthening the current ditches and hope the lower ground carries the volume. Crowther nodded. That would be the least disruptive and the least certain. His expression hardened. Charlotte turned the oldest map around. Or we find what remains of the southern cut. Nathaniel looked down and reopened it. In part, Crowther stepped closer. That would alter the lake. Yes. How much? I do not know yet. Then you are proposing damage without knowing the cost. Charlotte met his eyes. I am proposing that we stop pretending the cost does not already exist. Silence outside, wind moved against the windows. Crowther looked at Nathaniel. For years, Charlotte thought, that must have been the natural end of every disagreement. The steward gave his knowledge. The Duke gave the decision. Nathaniel did not speak. Instead, he looked at Charlotte. What would you do if Ashcombe were yours? The question unsettled her more than opposition had. She glanced at the maps again. I would find the old cut, and if it still exists, I would restore controlled flow through it. I would inspect whatever remains of the sluice. I would alter the overflow from the lake. Crowther exhaled. That could cost a great deal. It already has. Nathaniel looked at the old correspondence. My father enlarged that lake. Charlotte said nothing. He and Edmund spent half one summer overseeing the stone bank. There it was, not money. Memory. Charlotte softened her voice. You asked what I would do. I did. I would not keep the lake unchanged merely because grief prefers familiar shapes. Crowther turned his head sharply. Charlotte wished the sentence back. Nathaniel did not. He remained still for several seconds. Then he reached for a clean sheet. He placed it before her. Draw it as you believe it should be. Charlotte stared at him. Crowther did too. You have not seen the cut, she said. Then draw what you need to verify. And if I am wrong, then we change the plan. Simple words, not a simple thing. Charlotte picked up the pencil. The room seemed quieter. For the first time since arriving at Ashcombe, she felt the full weight of what he was giving her. Not permission to copy, not permission to advise. Judgment. She began with the southern meadow. By dusk, a new line crossed the page. It curved away from the current ditch, followed the old depression, then stopped where the woodland hid what came next. Nathaniel had left an hour earlier. Crowther had not. He stood beside the table now. You draw boldly. Charlotte kept her eyes on the page. No, I erase carefully. Crowther gave a short sound. That might have been approval. Lady Miriam found Charlotte still working after the lamps were lit. You have forgotten dinner. I have not. You have ignored it. That is different. Miriam came around the table and looked at the new plan. Then at Charlotte. There is something else you are ignoring. Charlotte set down the pencil. I do not know what you mean. Of course. Miriam rested one hand on the back of a chair. The house party begins next Thursday. Charlotte blinked. What house party? The one arranged months ago. Charlotte felt the first warning of unease. How many guests? 8. That is not a house party. That is an invasion. Miriam laughed. Lady Agnes will be among them. Charlotte looked back at the map. The pencil suddenly felt heavier. I should leave before they arrive. You have not finished. I can finish in London. Nathaniel's voice came from the doorway. No. Charlotte turned. He had entered without either woman hearing him. Miriam's gaze moved between them. I believe I shall rescue dinner. She left. Nathaniel stepped into the room. The commission requires the ground, he said. Charlotte folded her arms. And London requires gossip. London is not here. It travels. He looked at her for a long moment. Will that make you leave? Charlotte wanted to say yes. Instead, she looked down at the unfinished plan. No, Nathaniel's expression changed. Only slightly. Charlotte picked up the pencil again. I am staying because the work is not done. I know. The answer came too quickly. Neither of them spoke after that. Beyond the windows, the wind moved through the trees. On the table between them, Charlotte drew the future of Ashcombe in a line of dark graphite. And for the first time, she knew Nathaniel Harcourt would let her. By Thursday evening, Ashcombe Park no longer felt private. Carriages had begun arriving before 4. Footmen crossed the entrance hall with trunks. Voices drifted from rooms Charlotte had passed in silence for weeks. Fresh flowers appeared on tables. Extra candles were set out before dusk. The house looked brighter. Charlotte liked it less. She stood near the drawing room window before dinner, speaking with Lady Miriam, when Lady Agnes entered in blue silk. Miss Wren, Lady Agnes, I hear you have conquered half the county. Only several wet fields. Agnes smiled. How disappointingly practical. The other guests gathered around them in polished layers of conversation. 2 neighboring landowners had come with their wives. Sir Philip and Honoria had arrived from London that afternoon. Charlotte felt the shift immediately. At Ashcombe, she had become accustomed to being useful. Now she was once again something to be interpreted. At dinner, Sir Edward Marlowe asked Nathaniel about the southern improvements. You found the trouble then? Nathaniel set down his glass. Miss Wren found the old course. Sir Edward glanced toward Charlotte. Did she? She did. No hesitation, no amusement. Charlotte looked at Nathaniel only once. Lady Agnes noticed. Later, in the drawing room, the conversation turned to marriages announced during the season. Charlotte kept near Miriam. It did not help. Lady Agnes folded her fan. Do you intend to continue your professional work after marriage, Miss Wren? The room quieted by degrees. Charlotte looked at her. I have no present reason to stop. A woman near the fire pretended to examine her bracelet. Agnes's expression remained pleasant. How admirable. Charlotte understood the trap. If she protested the implication, she appeared hopeful. If she accepted it, she appeared ambitious. She chose neither. I find work generally more reliable than speculation. Miriam coughed into her hand. Nathaniel looked away, but Charlotte saw the beginning of a smile. For one foolish moment, she felt safe. Then she heard her uncle in the corridor. Charlotte had left the drawing room to retrieve a shawl. She stopped before turning the corner. Sir Philip's voice came first. "You cannot allow this to continue, Ashcombe." Nathaniel answered lower. "Allow what?" The talk, a pause. "Charlotte has no fortune worth mentioning. Everyone knows she is here. Everyone knows you employ her. You danced with her before half of London. And if your intentions are honorable, make them clear." Charlotte went still. Sir Philip continued. "If they are not, send her home before worse is said." Nathaniel's voice sharpened. "I will settle the matter." Charlotte did not wait to hear more. She turned back toward the map room. Nathaniel found her there 20 minutes later. The fire had burned low. Charlotte stood beside the table with a revised plan folded beneath one hand. "You left the drawing room." "I noticed." He shut the door. "Your uncle spoke to me. I heard enough." Nathaniel's expression changed. "Then you heard badly." "Did I?" "Yes." Charlotte picked up the map. "What precisely is to be settled? My name, my income, or me?" His jaw tightened. "No one is buying you. That is comforting. You know that is not what I meant." "Do I?" Nathaniel took one step closer. "I meant that I have means enough to prevent you from being placed in this position again." "What position?" "Having to take commissions from men who may not treat you honorably." Charlotte stared at him. The silence between them hardened. Nathaniel seemed to hear his own words too late. She asked, "And if I wish to continue taking commissions?" "You should not have to." There it was, not cruelty. Worse, certainty. Charlotte folded the plan once. Then again. "My father heard the same argument." Nathaniel's face went still. Men told him work was beneath people with better connections. Then they paid him when they needed him, and mocked him when he needed them. "That is not what I am doing." "No." She pressed the folded map against the table. "You wish to remove every circumstance in which I might need something you cannot control." Nathaniel said nothing. Charlotte's voice dropped. "You do not want me independent. You want me safe in a way that requires me to depend entirely upon you. That is not fair." "No." She looked at him. "It is accurate." He flinched. Only slightly. Charlotte hated that she saw it. "I will finish the revised plan. You will pay the agreed amount. Then I will return to London." "Charlotte, the commission is nearly complete. This is not about the commission. It is the only part of this arrangement we ever stated clearly." Nathaniel stopped. The words landed. Charlotte turned away before he could answer. When the door closed behind him, her hands began to shake. She sat, not because she was weak, because the room had tilted. For several minutes she stared at the folded plan. Then she opened it. Work first, grief later. Charlotte returned to the maintenance papers recovered from the locked cabinet. One entry had bothered her for days. She read it again. Stone gate cleared. South sluice timber renewed. Her pulse changed. She pulled the older survey closer. The sluice had not been removed, only abandoned. Charlotte crossed to the window. Rain streaked the glass harder than before. In the corridor, Nathaniel stood outside the map room door. His hand lifted once toward the latch, then fell. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, he understood that action could also be intrusion. Inside, Charlotte bent over the map. Outside, rain began to drum against Ashcombe's roof. The rider arrived before breakfast was served. Mud covered the lower half of his coat. His horse steamed in the cold morning air, and rain ran from the brim of his hat onto the marble floor. "Mill Cottages," he said. "The lower ditch has gone over." Nathaniel was already moving. Crowther appeared from the passage behind him, fastening his coat. "How high?" "Past the marker by Hales Field." Charlotte came down the stairs with the revised plan under one arm. Nathaniel looked at her. She saw the command forming in his face before he spoke. Crowther, take every available man south. Shore the ditch and send someone to the lake bank. No, the word stopped the hall. Charlotte reached the table beneath the great mirror and opened the plan. Water had reached the cottages faster than she expected. Crowther came to her side. Nathaniel did not yet. Charlotte placed one finger on the current ditch. If you shore this, the water has nowhere to go. It buys time, Nathaniel said. For the meadow, not the cottages. Crowther bent over the map. Charlotte traced the old southern cut. The ground is already full. The ditch cannot carry more. It will force the water here. Her finger stopped at Mill Cottages. Sir Philip and several house guests had entered the hall. No one spoke. Charlotte looked at Crowther. The sluice, his mouth tightened. If the gate still moves, we know the stone chamber remains. We do not know the timber. We know enough to try. Nathaniel stepped to the table. What happens to the lake? Charlotte met his eyes. The room seemed to narrow around the question. The bank must be opened below the eastern spill. If the old cut takes the flow, the lake level will fall. How far, I cannot tell you. Crowther said quietly. It may damage the ornamental side. Nathaniel looked toward the rain-dark windows. Charlotte did not soften it. The lake will not remain as it is. His gaze returned to her. And the cottages. If we wait, I cannot promise them. For one breath, nothing moved. Then Nathaniel turned to Crowther. Take the men to the sluice. Charlotte rolled the plan. I am coming, so am I. They reached the south meadow in driving rain. By then, the lower track was almost gone. Brown water crossed it in sheets. Men carried timber toward the ditch. 2 carts stood useless in the mud. At Mill Cottages, women were moving bedding and baskets to upper rooms. Mrs. Hale stood at her door with Thomas wrapped in a blanket. Nathaniel saw them, his face changed. Get the children to the house if the lane rises another inch. Then he looked at Charlotte. Where? She pointed toward the woodland, the old cut. They found the sluice house half buried beneath ivy and wet leaves. The stone chamber remained. The gate remained too. Barely one timber brace had split. Debris jammed the lower opening. Water pressed against the structure from the lakeside with a deep, steady force. Charlotte could feel beneath her boots. Crowther crouched beside the mechanism. It will not take a full release. It must not. Charlotte unrolled the map beneath a sheet of oilcloth. She pointed to the slope. Clear the lower mouth first. Dig a shallow trench from here to the depression. Reinforce the west side before anyone touches the gate. A foreman looked at Nathaniel. Charlotte saw it, so did he. The foreman waited. Nathaniel could have taken over with one sentence. Instead, he said, "You heard, Miss Wren." The man glanced back at Charlotte. Rain ran down her face. 2 men on the debris, she said. 4 on the trench. No one opens the gate until Mr. Crowther says the brace will hold. The foreman hesitated again. Nathaniel's voice hardened. Do exactly as Miss Wren tells you. That was enough. Men moved. Charlotte had been laughed at beneath chandeliers for drawing lines on paper. Now 8 men followed one through the mud. She had no time to think about it. The first section of debris came free. Water struck the stones harder. Crowther shouted for another brace. Nathaniel carried one end of a timber with 2 laborers, instead of issuing instructions from dry ground. Charlotte watched the trench deepen. Not farther east, she called. Follow the hollow. The rain swallowed half her words. She stepped closer. One worker slipped. Nathaniel caught his arm before he fell against the iron mechanism and pulled him clear. Again, Charlotte shouted. The trench reached the depression. Crowther tested the gate. It will move. How much? Perhaps 6 inches safely. 3 first, he nodded. The gate groaned. Water burst through the narrow opening. Too fast. Hold it. The men stopped. The new trench filled, overflowed, then found the old hollow beneath the grass. For several seconds, nothing changed. Then water began running south. Charlotte followed it with her eyes. Again, 2 inches, the gate rose. A crack sounded behind them. Everyone turned. A section of the ornamental bank had begun to slide. Nathaniel stared toward the lake. Stonework disappeared into brown water. Charlotte knew what it meant. The summer Edmund had spent there. His father's design, years of memory collapsing in seconds. Nathaniel. He looked at her. She did not tell him it was necessary. He knew. Continue, he said. Crowther opened the gate another inch. The bank gave way. Water surged toward the southern cut. For one terrible moment, Charlotte thought the trench would fail. Then the old depression took it. The land remembered. Water ran beneath the hawthorns, across the lower meadow, away from the cottages. Charlotte started toward Mill Lane. Nathaniel caught her elbow. Wait. We need the marker. I will send someone. No, I need to see the level. His hand remained at her arm for half a second. Then he released her. Go. They reached the cottages 10 minutes later. The lane was flooded to the edges, but the water was no longer rising. Mrs. Hale stood beneath the eaves. Crowther crouched beside the old marker. He watched the line once, twice, then he stood. It is falling. No one cheered. The rain was too loud. The work was not finished, but Charlotte closed her eyes for one breath. When she opened them, Crowther was looking at her. Your father taught you well. Charlotte swallowed. He did. Nathaniel stood several yards away, soaked through mud across one sleeve. Behind him, the ornamental lake was no longer hidden by trees. Through the rain, Charlotte could see the broken edge of its bank. He had lost something today. He had not asked her to spare it. That mattered. Later, when the immediate danger had passed, they stood beneath the shallow shelter of the sluice house. Nathaniel removed his gloves. His hands were scraped from the timber. Charlotte folded the wet map carefully. I was wrong, he said. She looked toward the damaged gate. About the drainage, no. Rain drummed against the stone roof. Nathaniel looked at her. Not only about the water, Charlotte understood. The words hurt less than they might have yesterday. That did not make them enough. She tucked the map beneath her arm. The commission is still finished when the final measurements are made. His face tightened. Yes. And then I leave. A long pause. Yes. Charlotte searched his expression. No argument, no order, no promise designed to corner her. For once, Nathaniel Harcourt let the choice remain where it belonged. With her outside, water continued through the reopened southern cut. The old lake was broken. The cottages were standing, and Ashcombe would never look exactly the same again. 3 weeks later, Ashcombe smelled of cut timber and summer grass. The rain had gone. The southern channel now ran in a controlled curve beyond the meadow, narrow enough to look deliberate, and broad enough to carry what the old ditches could not. Men worked along its banks with spades and barrows. Fresh stakes marked the line Charlotte had drawn. Mill cottages were drying. Miss Hale had moved the wooden bowl away from the wall. Thomas no longer coughed through the night. Charlotte knew because Nathaniel had told her. Not proudly, simply because he knew. Crowther found her in the map room shortly after breakfast. He carried 3 sheets of figures. Revised labor costs. Charlotte looked up. For his grace, for you. That made her pause. Crowther placed them beside her ruler. The eastern reinforcement can wait until autumn. The lower culvert cannot. Charlotte scanned the figures. You have allowed too little for stone. I expected you to say that. Then why write it? To see whether you would. She looked at him. Crowther's expression did not change. Charlotte smiled first. By noon, the commission was finished. Every corrected plan had been copied cleanly. Every alteration bore a date. Every remaining uncertainty was marked as such. Nathaniel met her in the library, rather than the map room. A small purse lay on the desk. He pushed it toward her. The agreed amount. Charlotte opened it. Counted exactly right, no additional guineas. No hidden generosity, thank you. Nathaniel nodded. Then he handed her a packet of letters. Charlotte did not take them. What are those? 3 inquiries. From whom? Lord Fenwick. Sir Edward Marlowe and a Mr. Talbot in Kent. Her suspicion returned at once. Nathaniel saw it. I told them you accept commissions. Nothing more. You discussed my fees. No, my availability. No, my terms. No, Charlotte finally took the letters. Nathaniel added. I said they should ask you themselves. Something in her chest tightened. This time, not painfully. Outside the window, a carriage rolled into the courtyard. Hers. Nathaniel glanced toward the sound. Your luggage is already below. You arranged it? You asked for a carriage at 1. I did, and it is nearly 1. No plea, no delay disguised as courtesy. No sudden crisis requiring her to remain. He was letting her leave. That mattered more than she wished it did. Honoria found Charlotte in the entrance hall, while a footman carried down the last trunk. Her cousin looked smaller than she had at the ball. Not physically. Some confidence had gone out of the way she held herself. Charlotte waited. Honoria clasped her gloves together. I have tried to apologize badly twice. Yes, I should like to do it properly once. Charlotte said nothing. Honoria swallowed. I wanted them to laugh with me before they could laugh at me. The honesty of it struck harder than an excuse would have. I knew people thought it odd that you worked. I knew they might think it odd that you lived with us. And I thought if I made it amusing first, they would not look too closely at me. Charlotte studied her. That does not make it kinder. No, or smaller. No, Honoria's eyes shone, but she did not cry. Charlotte was grateful for that. I may forgive you, she said. I do not know when I shall trust you. Honoria nodded. That seems fair. For once, she did not ask for more. Charlotte went outside. The carriage waited. So did the road to London. She should have climbed in. Instead, she turned toward the east terrace. Only once more, she told herself. The stone balustrade was warm beneath her palm. Beyond it, the southern fields stretched green under a clear June sky. The damaged ornamental lake was smaller now. Its broken edge had been reshaped rather than hidden. Ashcombe had not been restored to what it was. It had become something else. Footsteps sounded behind her. Nathaniel stopped several feet away. You will miss your carriage. I know. He did not come closer. Charlotte looked toward the new channel. I received the payment. I hoped you might. The amount was correct. I counted twice. She turned to him. That must have been difficult. Exhausting. The corner of her mouth lifted. Then the silence changed. Nathaniel looked out across the fields. When I said I could prevent you from needing commissions, I believed I was offering freedom. Charlotte waited. I was offering dependence with better furniture. She almost laughed. He did not. I do not wish to make your life smaller so that I may feel useful in it. The words were simple. No performance, no ballroom audience. Charlotte looked at the packet of letters in her hand. And if I continue to work, then I shall try not to interfere unless you ask me. You will fail at that. Frequently. This time she did laugh. Nathaniel looked at her. The sound disappeared between them. Charlotte, yes? I will not ask you to stay because Ashcombe needs you. Her fingers tightened around the letters. Good. And I will not ask because I can make your life easier. Better. He took one slow step closer. I am asking whether you could imagine a life in which I am allowed to stand beside you. Charlotte looked at him for a long time. She had money in her reticule, work in her hand, a carriage waiting behind the house. She could leave. That was the difference. Charlotte unfolded the revised estate map across the warm stone balustrade. Nathaniel blinked. She pointed to the eastern edge. There is no access path here. He looked down. No, that will be inconvenient when repairs begin. Who do you suggest should draw it? Charlotte traced the empty space with one finger. I suppose I shall have to return. Nathaniel went very still. Then he smiled. Not the polite smile from Mayfair. Something quieter, something hers. He bent and kissed her. Briefly, carefully. When he drew back, Charlotte left her hand against his coat for one moment longer than necessary. Then she folded the map. At the terrace steps, Nathaniel offered his hand. Charlotte looked at it. Once beneath chandeliers and 100 watching eyes, she had taken that hand because refusing it would have become another kind of humiliation. Now there was no audience, no obligation, no one to convince. Charlotte placed her hand in his. Together, they descended the steps toward the fields. Behind them, the map stirred in the June breeze. Ahead, the new channel caught the sunlight and carried the water exactly where it was meant to go. Charlotte and Nathaniel's story is a work of fictional historical romance, set against the customs and social pressures of Regency-era England. What stayed with me most while telling this story was not the moment the Duke offered Charlotte his hand in the ballroom. It was what happened much later, when he finally understood that respecting someone means more than protecting them. Charlotte never needed her work taken away from her. She needed it to be seen for what it was: skill, independence, and something she had earned for herself. Nathaniel's hardest lesson was different. He had spent years believing that if he controlled enough, planned enough, and possessed enough power, he could keep the people he cared about safe. Loving Charlotte forced him to discover the limits of that belief. And perhaps that is why the final hand mattered more than the first. The first time, Charlotte accepted it while an entire ballroom watched. The last time, no one was watching at all. She was free to leave. She chose him anyway. Would you have forgiven Nathaniel after he tried to settle Charlotte's future for her? Or would you have taken the carriage back to London? If you enjoyed Charlotte and Nathaniel's story, please like the video and subscribe for more historical romance stories.